Hawaii is very Japanese. More Japanese than most places in the world, outside of Japan. But how did it become this way? Today I'm going to discuss this and hopefully explain it clearly to do it justice, because I think it's a very interesting topic. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story of the Japanese Hawaiians. To explain how and why the Japanese diaspora came to Hawaii, we first need to examine a couple hundred years of Hawaiian history. For most of Hawaii's history, it existed in relative isolation. It's not definitively known when humans first came to the Hawaiian Islands, but some archaeological evidence suggests that humans first came around the year 1000, and that the first Hawaiians were a group of Polynesian sailors from Tahiti. Though there was the occasional shipwreck on the islands, Hawaii existed in relative obscurity and mostly in isolation from the rest of the world up until 1778. This is the year when the British explorer James Cook discovered the islands. This was the first documented European contact with the islands, and James Cook decided to name them the Sandwich Islands based off the Earl of Sandwich. At the time when Cook arrived, Hawaiians did have a shared culture, but the islands weren't unified. However, this would all change in 1795 when a man named Kamehameha conquered and unified all of the islands together under one government, the Kingdom of Hawaii. Kamehameha was able to consolidate power over these islands using British military tactics and technology. In fact, Kamehameha was so fond of the British that he put the Union Jack in the flag of Hawaii, despite the fact that Hawaii has never been official territory of Great Britain. Due to Kamehameha's propensity for the British, Hawaii would quickly westernize. Around the time when Kamehameha took over, Britain was a crucial trading partner since they imported goods to Hawaii that most Hawaiians couldn't produce themselves. With the increasing westernization of Hawaii came increased interest from other Western nations, especially the United States. America first established contact with Hawaii in the early 19th century by sending Christian missionaries, which the ruling class took fondly to. Before Christian missionaries, Hawaii existed under a system called the kapu, which was a group of religious laws that governed everything from what foods you could eat to the responsibilities of chiefs and kings. The kapu system started phasing out pretty quickly after Kamehameha took power. In fact, Kamehameha would flagrantly violate this system by dining with his mother. Under this system, men and women were not allowed to eat together, including family members, and Kamehameha deciding to share a dish with his mother was very scandalous. Around the time when Hawaii started westernizing, one commodity would come to dominate their economy and ultimately lead to a lot of foreigners coming in and buying up their land. This commodity was sugar. The first ever sugar plantation was established in Hawaii in 1835, and since then the Hawaiian sugar industry exploded. The rise in Hawaiian sugar coincided with the Civil War, and during the battles between the North and the South, the North had a hard time getting sugar because most of the sugar imported to America came from the Caribbean, and the South dominated all the ports along the Caribbean, so the North would import sugar from Hawaii. This also provided a more efficient way for America to ship sugar to California and the other Western territories, since shipping sugar from Hawaii to California is way cheaper and quicker than shipping it from the Caribbean, or, heaven forbid, going across the land in covered wagon with the sugar. If you do that, you're just begging to get robbed. In 1875, the US and Hawaii signed the Reciprocity Treaty, which made Hawaiian sugar duty-free to Americans in exchange for exclusive US rights to establish naval bases on their islands. As the sugar industry was growing, the Hawaiian ruling class decided to sell a lot of their land to wealthy foreign investors, and a lot of Americans and Europeans ended up buying big plots of land in Hawaii and farming sugar on them. This is how a lot of white foreign settlers gained so much power in Hawaii, is because they bought up a lot of the land. In 1887, about 10 years after the Reciprocity Treaty, a group of American and European landowners who called themselves the Hawaiian League imposed the Bayonet Constitution on the Hawaiian monarchy, which greatly reduced the monarchy's power and went to disenfranchise a lot of the native Hawaiians. A couple years after that, in 1893, the final Hawaiian monarch, Queen Liliuokalani, was overthrown by an American-backed coup, and Hawaii briefly became a sovereign republic under the President Stanford B. Dole. And yeah, Stanford B. Dole was related to James Dole, the fruit guy. After the Spanish-American War of the late 19th century, Hawaii's presence as a naval port for American military vessels became apparent, and the US Congress, along with the at the time President McKinley, decided to formally annex Hawaii in 1898. Hawaii, though, wouldn't become truly American until after World War II, where it showed its allegiance to America and the Allied powers. Eventually, President Eisenhower signed the Hawaiian Admissions Act in 1959, which gave Hawaii formal statehood, and it became part of the Union. So what does this all have to do with Japan? And how did Japan become one of the largest ethnic groups in Hawaii? So before the 1860s, Hawaii and Japan had some contact, mostly shipwrecked sailors that would end up on the islands. Also, there is a theory that Japanese sailors arrived as early as the 1600s due to syphilis that was discovered on one of the skeletal remains of a Hawaiian woman. Syphilis leaves distinct markings on the bones of the people that contract it. So if you're watching this and you have syphilis, just know that if they ever dig up your grave, they're gonna know. But during the 1600s, a shocking 40% of Japanese men had syphilis. This wasn't unique to Japan. Tons of people had syphilis around this time. It was huge in Europe. It was really big in the Middle East, and there's issues with it all over the world. But this is just a theory. This hasn't been proven that the syphilis came from a Japanese ship. For all we know, it could have come from a Chinese ship or another Polynesian ship. Formal relations between the two nations were made at the start of the Meiji era, when the Edo shogunate's restrictions on Japanese migration to Hawaii were overturned. The first group of Japanese migrants to Hawaii were called the Gannen Mono, and they arrived in 1868. Gannen Mono roughly translates to people of the first year, referencing the first year of the Meiji era, 1868. This group was composed of 124 men and 6 women, and they spread out throughout the Hawaiian Islands to farm sugar. Because of the disproportionate ratio, a lot of Japanese men ended up taking Hawaiian wives, creating some of the first mixed-race people in Hawaii. The working conditions, though, of these people were fairly harsh. In fact, the working conditions were so bad that roughly 50 Japanese people went back to Japan after working in Hawaii. But in the 1880s, these bans were lifted and more migrants came. So you might be thinking, well, if the working conditions are so bad, why are people going to Hawaii to farm sugar? Well, at the time, there was increased automation in Meiji-era Japan. Usually when automation increases really quick, what happens is a lot of people are put out of work and there's mass unemployment. And because of the advances in automation technology in the Meiji era, a lot of Japanese farmers were out of a job, so they were going overseas in order to work. That's why, despite the poor working conditions, they were still willing to go to Hawaii and work at the sugar plantations. In the year 1900, there was a huge influence of Okinawan migrants after Japan lifted its emigration ban on Okinawa. So many Okinawans came that by 1920, roughly 20,000 people of Okinawan descent lived on the islands. Though Okinawans are Japanese, they do have a separate culture from mainland Japanese and initially stuck to their own. In that same year, 1900, a law was passed that stated that any child born in Hawaii after April 30th, 1900 was considered a US citizen. This was super important for the Japanese Hawaiians because before then, under the Republic of Hawaii, the only people that were allowed to vote were Native Hawaiians, Americans, and Europeans. Since then, Japanese Hawaiians have been one of the largest demographics on the islands. Today, roughly 14% of Hawaiians have some sort of Japanese ancestry. And though 14% doesn't sound like that big of a number, keep in mind, Hawaii is pretty small, it's not that big. Japanese Hawaiian culture is fairly distinct from Japanese mainland culture, mostly because in the past 150 years, they've sort of grown apart from each other. Japanese Hawaiian culture developed under the influence of indigenous Hawaiian Polynesian culture, American culture, European culture, and cultures of other Asian groups that lived there, like Chinese and Filipino. There are actually more Filipino people in Hawaii than there are Japanese, but I make videos about Japan, so I'm sorry, Philippines. If you're Filipino and you're watching this, I like your country. I'd love to go to the Philippines, but this channel is about Japan. So maybe one day I'll expand and talk about other countries and other cultures. I sure as heck would like to. One day you'll get your Justice Philippines. The Japanese that's spoken in Hawaii is also different from the Japanese that's spoken in mainland Japan, sort of like how American English developed from colonial British English, and now Americans and British people sound very different. It's sort of like that. Traditional Japanese Hawaiian food, for example, is reminiscent of Meiji-era food, and many Japanese Buddhist temples and Shinto shrines in Hawaii practice Meiji-era customs that have since diminished in frequency on the mainland. Japanese Buddhism is pretty popular in Hawaii, and Hawaii has some of the only Shinto shrines in the world that are outside of Japan. Festivals like the Obon Festival, which is a Japanese Buddhist festival, are pretty big in Hawaii, along with many other Japanese festivals and holidays. Fun fact, the first ever Asian American governor was Governor of Hawaii George Ariyoshi, who was a Japanese Hawaiian. Modern-day Hawaii is one of the most diverse states in the country, and modern Hawaiian culture is a melting pot of Polynesian, Asian, American, and European. I believe America gets a lot of its strength with its diversity and the amount of different people that can live here and coexist. And it's one of my favorite things about America. So thank you so much for watching today. This video is a little shorter, but I hope you enjoy these shorter videos. I'm pretty busy in my personal life, so I don't know if I'm gonna have time to make super long videos like what I've been doing. I know in the poll that I put up, I said that my next video would be on Yasuke, but the Japanese Hawaiian thing, I don't know. I thought it was a great idea and I just really wanted to put it out. The Yasuke video feels like something that would take a lot of time to do because I really want to go deep in on that. And the reason why I say that isn't because I believe that Hawaii or Japanese Hawaiians aren't worthy of going super deep into. They definitely are, but maybe I'll make a much deeper dive into Japanese Hawaiian culture sometime in the future. I just sort of wanted to put this out because I'm experimenting with shorter videos. I'd like to say thank you everybody on all the support. I don't typically like asking for subscribers, but I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so that way I can monetize my videos. So if you're not subscribed and you found this video interesting, be sure to subscribe. And I guarantee you won't regret it. There's going to be a lot of great videos coming in the future. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell because I live stream on this channel and we talk about some funny stuff. So thank you all so much. I can't wait to see you in the next video, and I got a ton of great ideas. So thank you all so much for the support, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.